communities from Jenner to Elk and beyond. For subscription and advertising information, call the ICO at 707-884-3501 or visit mendonoma.com.
Hi, this is Paul Mundy of the Sea Ranch, host of a new show on Peggy's Place called Crossing Bridges. This show is about bringing people together on both sides of the Walla River. It will feature locals who will talk about their history, what they bring to the community, and how we all depend upon each other. Sometimes we might feature guests from both sides of the river because we have so much in common. It's all about crossing bridges with me as your host, Paul Mundy, on Peggy's Place. Tune in for our first Crossing Bridges on Peggy's Place, Wednesday, February 24th at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. on KGUA 88.3 FM or online at kgua.org.
And Paul's first guest on Crossing Bridges is Lou and Maynord Lyndon of Lyndon Design Gallery in the Sea Ranch. And good morning to Peggy's Place. This is KGUA in Molalla, 88.3 FM. I'm Leanne Lindsay, and we do have a brand new show today, a premiere of Crossing Bridges with our new host, Paul Mundy, and our guests are Lou and Maynord Lyndon. We're going to get to them in just a few seconds here. First, I've got a few announcements to make for everyone. As for the weather, we have beautiful sunny blue skies, 53 degrees. Looks like this weather is going to hold for the next week until about March 4th, and then it looks like we may have some rain coming in. Until then, we will have some windy days on Friday and Saturday. Today, the winds will get up to about 10 to 20 miles per hour and up to about 62 degrees. We have some announcement as far as the art that is showing here in the area. Up in Point Arena is the Coast Highway Art Collective from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. this weekend. It is the last weekend of their Valentine's Day exhibit. And then next weekend, they're going to have Cynthia Myers, that beautiful art glass work. And then they have Peter Dobbins as well with photography. Also up in Point Arena, it is Mixed Media by Manuela Dean, and he's exploring the relationship between forests and human society called The Consistency or Constancy of Trees. And that'll be from, February the 17th through March the 16th. And there is an artist reception from 1 to 5 p.m. That's at Think Visual Gallery. Think Visual Gallery is at 240 Main Street in Point Arena. Down in Wallala, it is the last weekend at Wallala Arts for Shelter from the Storm. And that's art that has been created during these turbulent times. And that ends on Sunday. In the Sea Ranch at Lyndon Design Gallery, it is Doorway, paintings by Joe Farizo. And that is 40 drawings of the same doorway, yet they are not the same at all. Artist Joe Farizo has over time created 40 interpretations of a doorway in his mind using 5 identical shapes with color and visual surprises revealing what may be in the space beyond the open door. That's 11 to 4 p.m., 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., Saturday or by appointment, and that's Lyndon Design Gallery on Annapolis Road in the Sea Ranch, which brings me now to our guests, and I'm going to ask everybody to unmute their mics, and I'm going to welcome now our new host on Peggy's Place with a new show called Crossing Bridges. Welcome, Paul Mundy.
Thank you, Leanne. It's great to be here this morning.
Yes, and it's so good to see you. And I'm going to let you now introduce our guests, our first guests on Crossing Bridges. And first of all, I want to tell people that Crossing Bridges is all about bringing people together on both sides of the Wallala River, from the Sea Ranch in Sonoma County to Wallala and places north along the Mendocino County coast. And it will feature locals who will talk about their history, what they bring to the community, and how we all depend on each other. Some shows might feature guests from both sides of the bridge with similar interests or backgrounds because we all have so much in common. And with that, Paul, I'm going to let you take it away now.
Thank you so much, Leanne. Welcome, Lou and Maynard Lyndon on Crossing Bridges, our first show.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited to have you two here. I'm going to fill in our listeners a little bit about some of your background. It's an extensive background, but from 2004, Lou and Maynard had lived on the Sea Ranch and still do, and they worked in Gualala, crossing over our bridge of the Gualala River daily for over a dozen years. Lou and Maynard's story begins in 1971 at Design Research, where they met. Lou worked at both Design Research San Francisco store as well as the Beverly Hills store. And we're going to get to a real interesting question and story. Lou actually hired Maynard for a store manager position, which I think is really kind of a fun story we talked about yesterday.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, exactly. Lou was promoted to merchant manager of the 10 Design Research locations, and Maynard was promoted to the headquarters in Boston. Together, their relationship of love of modern design, working together to develop their shops and all these wonderful things they've created over the years. They opened in 2004 after moving to Sea Ranch. They opened their shop in Gualala called Placewares to become not only a store of fine arts gallery, but thus adding together the Placewares and Lyndon design that comes together. So let's get started and talk about Lou. I love this story. So Lou, tell us about how you and Maynard met in 1971. And you actually hired him, excuse me.
Yes,
And
indeed.
welcome to the show, guys.
Good morning.
And good luck to you, Paul, in this new adventure.
So it's true. I hired Maynard. I was invited to move from the West Coast to the East Coast to work for Design Research at the headquarters, but they told me I had to find someone to take my place as the manager of the Beverly Hills store. And one day in walked this Maynard Lyndon guy, and I liked him right off the bat. So I hired him and we worked together for a couple of weeks. And then I moved to Boston. And a year later, he also was moved to Boston and we worked together. And well, one thing leads to another. And we have been working together and living together and then married together for the last, whatever it is, that would be 40 years. Yep, something like that. No, longer.
41.
Well, but if we met in 71,
That's true.
Oh my goodness. So anyway, that's the story.
That is so great. And fill us in on how and you got involved with Design Research and a little bit about that, because that was back east in Boston and there was a store in San Francisco and Beverly Hills. So that's quite a spread across the country.
Yeah. So when I finished college, I had a career path that fell apart, and I decided I had to get out of San Francisco. So I moved to Boston. And while I was there, I discovered this place called Design Research, and it was just heaven for me. And on my Saturdays, I would hang out at the store. I didn't work there.
Let me interject just to say that Design Research was the first significant modern design store in America of any real size. And it was started by an architect, Ben Thompson, in the 50s.
Right.
And it grew and grew and became an iconic, wonderful design store.
So after a year in Boston, I decided I really wanted to be back in San Francisco again. So I moved back to the West Coast. And I heard that DR was opening a store in Ghirardelli Square. And I thought, this is not possible. So I went for an interview and I didn't get the job. I think I was neither Scandinavian nor tall nor blonde. 3 important qualities, not to say that outgoing, which I wasn't. I was very shy. But I said, I understand you don't want me to come and work as a salesperson, but I can come in, help you open the store, and I can open boxes, I can price things, I can do whatever you would like. So for a year, I think it was a year, I went on Saturdays. I had a regular day, Monday through Friday job, but on Saturdays, I put on my Marimekko dress and I went to work at DR. And over time, I guess I proved that I knew something that was useful. And so they hired me to work full time, and the rest was history. But it's one of those stock girl to whatever stories.
It's great, to give opportunities even on a small scale that grows into something amazing that you two have created. And Maynord, how did you get started in design? What took you there?
Well, my family was very much a part of my growing up and background. My mother had in 1941, opened a design shop in Detroit, Michigan called Contemporary Backgrounds. She really encouraged me to draw and sketch every day, as did my father, who was a noted modern architect. And they both, and the rest of the family, my siblings as well, everybody was involved in looking at things carefully, being observant, making notes, trying to see what could be done more intelligently, better in design. And it was across the board, from product design to architecture to graphics. And that led me into going to school, both to study to be an architect, which I decided not to do, and to be a painter, an artist, and a product designer. And so I just let the path go. And when design research came along, I was hired to be developed into the director of product development, which was designing products and furniture and housewares and glassware for the company. So that has led to the two of us working together at Design Research, and then leaving in 1978. No. Well, that's right. We did another whole exercise. That's right. And we started a company called Placemakers. And we were making places for people, designing interiors. And then Placemakers, we decided we really need to be able to have some of these products that we're recommending to people put in their houses. Why don't we open a little store? So we developed the name Placewares, wares for your place. And that started in 1978 with our very first little store in Concord, Massachusetts, which was
900 square feet.
Tiny. And that was north of Boston. And eventually we grew the company to 7 locations. And the funny thing I was mentioning to you yesterday, I think it was, Paul, that the way we would choose, this is in the 80s, the way we would choose another location for an additional shop was to count the number of Volvos, because our customer base seemed to be the Volvo owner. I don't know why, but that happened. And sure enough, we made good choices on each of the locations all around Boston and in Boston itself.
Well, I'd just like to interject here and let our listeners know that this is Peggy's Place. We have a brand new show today that's premiering called Crossing Bridges. And on the show, as our first guests, are Lou and Maynord Lyndon of the Sea Ranch of Lyndon Design Gallery. And our new host, is Paul Mundy, also a Sea Rancher and on the Archives Committee. Forgot to mention that before. I'm Leanne, your co-host. And I would like to just let you guys know that I saw this photo of you, Maynord, in that packet you gave me of a little boy. I think you were 7 years old, and you had created all these replicas of different buildings. I guess you'd come back from an exhibit in Paris with your mother or something like that. That was a young age.
By both parents took the family, the siblings, and we went to Europe. And it was in Paris. I was so impressed. We were asked as children to have a notebook and to record everything that we saw that was interesting to us, try to understand the spelling of the different names in different languages, and to make sketches. And when I came back, I built cardboard models of the Eiffel Tower. Well, actually, that was balsa wood and basswood, and the Louvre and the Arc de Triomphe. And there's a photograph, it's true, of me sitting on the patio outside with all these models. I had forgotten that was in that packet.
It was really impressive. So, Paul, let's go on to some of your next questions.
Yeah, so Lou, your background wasn't necessarily started out in design, did it?
No, I was an English lit major. But when I was little, I built things. I made drawings. I always made a drawing of my room, and I had fantasies of how I would change my room if I had the ability to do so. And so it somehow was hidden, it wasn't those hidden interests, talents. And as I say, when I found design research, it was just exactly the kind of feeling about spaces, and I don't like to call it style, but it was the way people related to their environment that was really appealing to me and grabbed me.
Can I ask
And
another
I stayed
quick
with it.
question? Lou, what year was that when you were in the Ghirardelli Square in design research? What year was that?
I was 65.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I was in San Francisco in the 80s, so I'm just missed
Yeah.
you by a few
Yeah.
decades, a couple decades. Anyway, so that was back in 65.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to, my office was in the clock tower of Ghirardelli Square. We had to walk up these spiral staircase in order to get up into the tower. But
Right above
Yeah.
the chocolate factory,
Yeah.
the Ghirardelli chocolate.
yeah, so I smelled chocolate
Oh,
every day. And then when we opened our placeware stores, the Starbucks kept opening near us. So I smelled the coffee every day. So I don't know, it's a little different here. I smell the ocean.
So let me ask you, so you both created several books, and one of my favorite books is Object of Your Affection. Is that the latest
Objects
book?
of Our Affection.
Yeah, I love that book. Can you kind of describe a little bit about that book? And then I know there were some other quarterly things that you put together for the store. And I find that you're producing books is fascinating.
Well, this is the book, The Objects of Our Affection. And what we did, because we've been collecting these things, just objects or art or little things we found or put together or made. Like, for instance, I make what I call looking boxes. And they're my photographs, which I put into a bamboo box. And I've been doing these for many years. But we decided there were enough things around that one day when we're gone, our kids won't know why we have these things. Our grandkids won't know where these came from. So we decided, let's just photograph our favorite ones. And we worked with Hall Kelly, graphic designer we've worked with for years, in the other side of the river, and developed this book, which just documents our little paragraphs about each thing of who made it, what the provenance was, what year, why we bought it, why it interests us. And it's just fun to put those things together. So, oh, you're able to hold up the book there? I didn't realize you. Oh, there, look at that.
Oh, there's a looking box.
There's a looking box book.
right.
So
And
we've done a series of books.
I
on
actually
that.
have two. There's these two right here.
Right.
Right.
So those books we did ourselves, did the graphics and layout and designed the book. And Hall Kelly, who has worked with us for years in doing all of our ads and other graphic material for Placewares and for Lyndon Design, the Objects of Our Affection is that book. And then we did another book for the same reason of our collection of design posters that we've collected over the years. And that's going to be the subject of one of our next exhibits at the gallery here at Sea Ranch.
But the objects book is fun because it's actually, it's sort of a walk through our house. We couldn't figure out how to organize the book. We didn't want to do it by material. That seemed boring. We couldn't do it by size. So we finally decided, well, let's just pretend that you are coming to our house. And so we go through the house, not everything, but you can see things in sort of in a context.
Yeah.
So there was also some quarterly things that you did for the store. Is that right?
Oh, ever since 1978, when we started the first Placeware store, we did catalogs, we did flyers, we did the whole point. Our tagline for Placewares in the beginning was specializing in places to put things. Whereas Placemakers was our design store where we were designing spaces for people. And then the storefront Placewares became a part of that because we were actually resourcing the products that people could use in their kitchen, their dining room, their living room, their bedroom.
And the focus was really helping people get organized.
Yeah. And specializing in places to put things. We started out the same year as the Container Store. In fact, the owners of the Container Store were very good friends of ours. They've now sold it, but that has grown into an enormously successful and large company, and we stayed very small. But we have the same sensibility about finding things to help people organize and put things in order in their dwelling, in their offices.
So over your career, so you had 8 Placeware locations, and then you created Placeware, Lyndon Design, and places that had shops, and then Lyndon Design Gallery. So you've really expanded and grown over the decade.
And then we shrunk. So
yeah.
we went to a goodly number of stores. We had 45 employees. And then at some point we said, this is enough. And we closed Boston.
Because we moved back to California.
We built a house here at the Sea Ranch and decided.
What year was that? What year?
We built in 2000 and we moved in 2004.
And then we felt once we were here, all right, we've closed all of our stores. What can we do that would be good for the community, our new community that we want to become a part of? What would we enjoy doing? And we had all sorts of ideas, including with our kids at the time. Well, you could have, because we drive a Mini Cooper.
Like Paul does.
And they said, well, you could do mini messenger service. You could deliver things on both sides of the river, whatever it was. Somebody wants something delivered, a meal, a prescription, clothing that they bought. No, we didn't do that. And then Lou had the idea to do Madeleines. So we're going to do Madeleines by mail. And she actually...
I tested recipes. I got really serious. And then I found that there was a company in Berkeley that was making millions of Madeleines every day. And they had the market. And I thought, okay, I'm not going here. And besides, I didn't like the idea of getting up at 3 a.m. to bake Madeleines.
So we finally said, why don't we just do what we know how to do? And we know how to present a store presentation, and let's look for a space. And we went across the river and found in a special place in Wallala, where we were for 12 years and as Placewares. So we had reopened the group of stores that we had already closed, thought that was...
But with a different focus.
With a different focus, not specializing in places to put things so much, but as a combination of objects and useful utility things that would be a treat for people to have in their homes. And then over time, we wanted to return to the art part of it all. And we added Lyndon Design, which was our design product firm. And we combined the two and took on more space in Cypress Village in Wallala.
So I want to do a little sort of an interesting sort of circle. Life takes us funny places and one thing leads to another. But when I was working for design research in the 60s in Ghirardelli Square, a number of our customers were building homes here at the Sea Ranch.
Or on the coast.
So, it was not, when we arrived back in 2004 and thought maybe we could open a store in Wallala, it wasn't a huge risk because we knew that there was a customer base for the kind of product that we knew how to resource and put together into the store that was Placewares.
I was wondering about that connection in time between the 60s and Sea Ranch and the influence, actually, the design that you have had carried through your life, how it's actually seemed to blend into the Sea Ranch design. I see that reflected in other homes.
Well, part of the whole ethos of design research was respecting materials, respecting the environment, trying to bring people more close to I'm not going to say this very well, but having an appreciation for both the inside of your home and the outside.
And your relationship to others around you.
Right. And just having a thoughtful attitude about the things that you chose to surround yourself with, so that it wasn't, you weren't buying something just for the moment and throwing it away. You were buying something that would, we sometimes joked and called it heirloom purchases, like things that you would buy for yourself, but which you knew would last and be passed along to people who came after you, who understood where it came from. Excuse me, which I guess is why we did that little book too. Mm-hmm. It explains why we bought things, what the thought was, and hoping that it would be appreciated further.
So let's go back a little bit in history. So tell me about the Metropolitan Home article, July 1986. I love that because I was looking at that, and then I was in your home and I started putting a few things together. And Maynord, why don't you tell me a little bit about how those two connections are? Because there are things in your home in Sea Ranch that you got from this to the restoration of the carriage house in Massachusetts.
When we were living in Newton, Massachusetts, outside of Boston, in a small space, on one of her walks one day, Lou discovered this derelict old carriage house. And a carriage house was where the horses and the carriages were kept for the main house. And this was on the property of Andover Newton Theological Seminary, which was an old
it's the oldest theological
school in the country. And they had left this sort of abandoned, and they were storing the organ from the chapel in it and so forth, which is where we got married later on, by the way, in that chapel up the hill. But so there was this abandoned property, and it was not in very good condition. And we explored it, and we asked the college, the Andover Newton, about it, and could we possibly live there? If we would agree to fix it up. It was an 1886 carriage house that was empty. They weren't using it. And we started repairing it, trying to put it back together. And over time, and finally, we invited the vice president up the hill, this is on a hill, of the seminary to come down for lunch one day. He was so impressed with what we're doing. He said, I think you should start paying rent.
Rent free.
Yeah, we had been rent free for some time. And I think you should maybe start paying rent. Okay, we'll pay rent. So we started paying a small amount of rent.
And then we said, do you think we could maybe buy this?
Yeah, eventually. And eventually they agreed to sell it to us. And we restored it, really. I mean, I had my sawzall cutting big holes, and
we didn't restore it, we renovated.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we didn't remodel it. We tried to go back to its original sense of what it was as a carriage house. But in that, we learned a lot of things about, and when we were doing placemakers and placewares, we learned a lot just by having this space to do. And one of the things I think you're talking about, Paul, is this wood burning stove back here,
yes,
which is a Danish wood burning stove, which we use all of the time. And it's the same model we had back there, but the spaces in this house that we developed with Donlin, my brother, who you interviewed recently, Donlin Lyndon, we developed the spaces for this house to be not unlike the kinds of spaces that we had lived in this 1886 house. Then Metropolitan Home Magazine came along somehow and took note of what we had and how and Lou did the colors. It was incredible building. And they said, look, it's going to be 100 years old, this house. Can we do a story? And this was New York Magazine, who decided to send a whole film crew, and it was in the middle of winter, and they brought in a whole truckload of potted trees so they could put them in the snow.
Because it was going to be for a summer issue.
For a summer issue. And they put them outside the window so it would look like, and they had us standing on the little balcony. We had short sleeves with lemonade glasses on a little tray in whatever
It was about
winter month it was.
28 degrees outside.
But yes, back to your question, there are certain things we learned about developing the space ourselves, physically doing the work, physically sanding, cleaning, painting, that led us to the forms of this house and the spaces with Donlan.
I'd like to let our listeners know that they can actually see your home and that stove you were talking about because we are live on YouTube. And you can also hear us on the stream at kgua.org anywhere in the world. This is KGUA 88.3 FM. I'm Leanne Lindsay as a co-host today, along with Paul Mundy, who's a new host today on a premiere show that we've got called Crossing Bridges on Peggy's Place. And it's an occasional show that'll come from time to time, but it's all about bringing people together from both sides of the bridge of Wallala and the Wallala River Bridge and here on the northern Sonoma and Mendocino coasts. And I just want to also ask you guys about this Miramaco that keeps coming up. And I see that Paul's design behind him on the screen, if anybody's watching on YouTube, it's a Miramaco design too. So if you guys could just talk about that for a little bit.
Take it away, Lou.
Okay, Marimekko is actually a Finnish company. People often think it's Japanese.
Marimekko, not Miramaco.
Marimekko. Yeah.
What
and
it means, Mary's little dress.
It means a little dress for Mary. And it was this is actually its 70th year since it was founded by a Finnish woman by the name of Armi Ratia, who wanted to bring some color and vitality and free spirit to Finland at a time when they were just recovering from a very, very horrific war. Finland has been besieged by Russia and very tightly shut down. Even the first time Maynord and I went to Finland in the 70s, it was still very tightly shut down. But Army had this idea that by bringing artists together to create textiles that could be used in your home and also in styling some clothes, that it would bring some joy and vitality to everyone's.
Especially in their bitter winters.
Yeah, especially when it's so cold and it's dark in Finland. They're really far north. Anyway, so fast forward, sometime in, I guess it must have been the late 50s,
right.
Ben Thompson, who was the founder of Design Research, was on one of his travels through Europe and went to Finland, met Armi. The two were soulmates, and he brought Marimekko to America, and not only for the DR stores, but also to wholesale it to whomever was interested in selling it. And Marimekko still is around. They have their own stores here in the US, corporate stores, and there's still a limited number of places that sell Marimekko. You can buy it online.
It's a wonderful quality cotton.
Yes.
And it is silk screened and initially by hand.
By hand. And you can go online and go to Marimekko. There are wonderful films that show exactly how they do the silk screening. It's a very interesting company.
The hanging fabric behind us, if you're looking on,
right.
on YouTube, is another Marimekko piece, but they are very vibrant, wonderful.
We're wearing
now, these are Marimekko.
And
like this shirt was
Mm-hmm.
designed in 1956. It's called the Finn Farmer shirt.
No, it's not.
It's not?
No,
Yokopoika, but I thought it was also, okay.
which is
all right.
What is Yokopoika? I've forgotten now what the translation is. Anyway, we sold Marimekko at our Placeware store in Wallala.
Yes, you did. I remember.
And in the original Placeware stores.
Not so much, but here we did. And there's sort of funny, the dress I'm wearing came in a number of colors. And we sold it in several colors. And there are a number of us in this general area who own this dress. And it's always it was when we were still going out and about. It would be one of those things that, oh my goodness, we're going to a party and this person is also going to be at the party. Are they going to wear their Merrimack dress? Should I check? And sometimes we did all up here. And there was a funny, when there was the dedication of the Moonraker rec center with the new graphics by Bobby Stoffaker, there were 4 of us who appeared in by design in our gray and black Merrimack stripe dress. It was very funny.
I remember that. That was great. I love
We
that.
say after this COVID thing is over, we're all going to have dinner at St. Orr's and we're going to wear our dress.
Fantastic.
I love that. We're looking forward to that.
Yes.
So Maynard, one of the really things that I love talking about was some of the children's furniture with your color form line. Can you explain a little bit how you created that and what was the catalyst?
In 1967, I opened a little toy store in Santa Monica, California, with toys that I handmade and toys that I bought from people bringing things in from Europe, European toys. And then I began designing toys and small furniture pieces, and was getting a lot of attention nationally as well. And that led to, in fact, the president of Creative Playthings in Princeton, New Jersey, flying out unannounced one day, came to the store, and he after walking around Santa Monica several blocks for a while, he offered me the position of director of product development back in New Jersey, which I ended up taking and closed that store. But what you're asking about color form line, when I started making toys and children's furniture, Color Form was the name of my toy store. And then Color Form Line, I rented several garages and I was manufacturing at a very small scale children's furniture in 1968. The beautiful thing is, I was mentioning this to you before, Paul, that now a new sea rancher who is building a house up here, new to the coast, has a wonderful company. He's trying to get people interested who are craftspeople and artists and furniture makers in Oakland. He's got his space. He's trying to encourage people to come and work together. But he also learned that I had designed this line of children's furniture, and he's going to produce it again after all these 50 some years.
Wow.
That's great.
In production, so we have an agreement, and it was a group called Seesaw Sit Set is what I called it, and I won't go into detail about it, but that's what Color Form Line was, which I shut down when I moved to Creative Playthings in Princeton, New Jersey.
So now, years later, it's going to have a new line.
It's going to have a new line.
That's a great story. I love your industrial design products. And can you kind of talk about several companies that there was furniture, toys, houseware, architectural products, metal, glass?
One of the wonderful things, we started in 1983, our Lyndon design as a product design firm, just the two of us initially. And one of the nice things about having these multiple stores in Boston is that when we went to trade shows to purchase for the stores, we had more buying power because of the number of stores we had. And so our presence was different than just having one little mom and pop store. So we began to approach exhibitors, companies from different countries and the US as well, seeing what their capabilities were in glass blowing, in plastic, in wood. And we would approach them and say, we have developed some products for our own little company. Would you be interested in an arrangement with us where you could produce these and market them and sell them to others, which is the way it proceeded. So it was a very nice relationship to develop with these. Some of the companies were in Denmark as well. Largely furniture, things that still would fit into our own Placeware stores, but then would fit into other stores. Crate and Barrel was a huge user of our Lyndon design products, for instance. The Container Store, we designed a whole series of furniture, shelving, desks, entertainment centers, which I named after Lou's maiden name, Wendell. And for years, it did extremely well in lots of stores, specialty stores, department stores, big stores, little stores.
And the arrangement we had was that we would do the design work, but the people we were working with would do the manufacturing and the marketing.
Oh,
And
great.
in exchange for the design work, we would get a small royalty for every piece
And then
sold.
when in trade shows, they do a whole booth just with our product, the whole system. And then we go shopping for our own stores and there's our own product. It was a very nice relationship. So that developed into a series of little companies that we started.
I love that. And that kind of brings us to where you are now. So on the Sea Ranch, there is Lyndon Design Gallery on Annapolis Road. So you've really gone so many different wonderful directions in creativity and bringing great design to people and art. And tell us how this new adventure of Lyndon Design Gallery on Annapolis Road started.
Well, one thing leads to another. We had planned to do a really major travel thing, like lots of people did last year.
Looking at architecture and products.
And it was going to be a more elaborate trip than what we normally do. And we were really geared up for it. And then COVID happened. And so like everyone else, we hunkered down, sheltered in place and felt miserable and thought, this is not fun. And then there was a day first day that I'd been out for quite some time. We both went up to Wallala and Maynard went to the post office. I sat in the car and I watched people walking by, shuffling their feet, looking down at the ground and just
a year ago,
just being miserable. And I thought, this is not good.
Right.
What can we do? Is there something that we can do that might bring some joy to this place that clearly is not happy? And at the same time, an artist that we have worked with, told us about this little place at 1000 Annapolis Road, this little 275 square foot gallery space, and said, you guys should think of opening a gallery. And I thought, that's it. So we put our heads together and said, who could we ask? Who do we know that might want to be part of this crazy adventure? And we contacted some of the artists that we've been working with at Placeware's Lyndon Design Gallery, and they all said, we're in. So what was it, 6 weeks later? Something like that, really quickly.
In June,
we opened the gallery in June. The space was clean. We needed some lighting, and Maynard designed some wonderful fixtures to hold more art because there isn't that much wall space. And we opened, and it's been really lovely because people responded right away. And we are adjacent to the wine shop. And the wine shop has great wine and it has a nice customer base. And those people seem to like art, just like they like their wine.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
What we're doing now is really quite fun because we've taken one wall, which is really part of the wine shop, but it's at our combined entrance. And we're devoting that wall to what we're calling 2 Saturdays, guest artists. So we are selecting and inviting artists, mostly local, to have that wall for 2 Saturdays and the week in between. And we're only open Saturdays, but we're inviting people to make an appointment and come any day during the week. We just live 5 minutes away, so it's easy to do. And that's been really wonderful. What's currently there is Joe Ferruso's wonderful drawings for just 2
Leanne
weeks.
had mentioned.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that. And he's a young artist who has moved up here on the coast. His wife, their 15-month-old, who was delightful little daughter, and they were there last Saturday, and they'll be there
And
this
their
Saturday.
Oh,
Their dog, and the dog is named Splinter.
Right.
And it's people are just enjoying coming. We haven't been letting more than 2 people in at a time But that's all right. People are patient. They wait outside. They talk. They meet other people. Where are you from? Oh,
It's
you're
true.
from Elk. You're from Manchester. You're from Wallala. You're
Or
from
you live a
Oakland.
mile and a half
Yeah.
from my house in Oakland.
Yeah. I mean, it's just really it's coming together nicely. We've been telling people, Paul, that we feel we failed retirement twice. Because
That's okay.
we thought we'd finished all this, but there's still, we want to do things carefully, thoughtfully, respectfully of what people want to have in their lives,
But we
and
also like to share what
we like to share
had.
what we have. So it's
Well, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Lou and Maynard Lyndon of Lyndon Design Gallery. They're our first guests on Crossing Bridges, a new show that we're going to be having here on Peggy's Place occasionally throughout the year with our new host and sea rancher, Paul Mundy, and he's also with the Archives Committee. And Crossing Bridges really is about bringing people together from both sides of the Wallala River, from the Sea Ranch to Wallala and north, because we're all part of a big Northern California coastal community. And it's all about how we work together and support each other. And I'm Leanne Lindsay, your co-host today on Peggy's Place. This is KGUA in Wallala, 88.3 FM. We are on kgua.org as well with our Air Pocket app that you can take with you anywhere on any mobile device. And there's also Radio Garden and TuneIn apps that you can listen to KGUA anywhere you go. And we are now live on YouTube today as well. And one thing I wanted to ask you guys too, I love the shadow boxes that you have created, Maynard. And I have the books here that I was just holding up. I think I'll hold them up again. Yes. And when I first met you guys about 8 years ago here in the Cypress Village, where our studios are located, at the time I was just starting a video production company, and you were my first guest on that. And I remember we talked about not only those shadow boxes, which are so beautiful, and I want to find out if you can buy those anywhere online these days, like Etsy or anything like that. And also at the time, you were talking about toys earlier. At the time, you had Buddy L trucks at that exhibit in Placeware and Lyndon Design Gallery here in the Cypress Village. So I just think back to those days, and you had the marketplace with Carolyn Ducato. So it was a beautiful location. But talk a little bit about if people can still buy those shadow boxes anywhere.
Well, they can. We have a website, www.lookingboxes.com. But what I want to say, in addition to what you were just pointing out, how important it was for us to be in Cypress Village and in Wallala and the whole community, because coming all the way back from Boston and arriving here on the coast, and to suddenly be in this whole wonderful community, not just Sea Ranch, but Wallala as well, because we met so many people that we still are good friends with in town. When I say town, I mean in Wallala. And we developed a relationship with other tenants, not just in Cypress Village, but the markets, the juniors to get the car service, to RCMS, which has been vital to us. In fact,
Right up the street from us. Yes.
Lou's been very involved with working with RCMS for some years now. And just it's where we go for lots and lots of things, and it's very important.
You are always so welcoming in your store to everyone, and you are now in your new gallery. You just have that warm, welcoming presence, both of you.
Thank
I
you.
think one of the things that we found so remarkable when we moved back here, we'd never lived at the Sea Ranch. We'd never lived in a place as remote as this is. But the sense of community here is so completely welcoming. I mean, we all came here for our own different reasons, but somehow similar reasons. And it unites us. Living in this very special place in the world attracts a very unique group of people. And it's been a delight to have the time and opportunity to meet people like-minded, and sometimes not so like-minded, but it's just been really a much more meaningful experience than when we lived in Boston, this grand city, but didn't really know very many people. One of the things that we have the opportunity to have living here is to be able to get to know people better than we might have before.
Of course, it's a little bit different in this COVID year, but we've all
Yes.
learned how to communicate in other ways and to be helpful to each other. I don't know about your neighborhood, but our particular neighborhood, we shop for each other. If we go to town to go to the market, we buy for several people, and we pick up if we're buying something from one of the restaurants in town. We buy it for 2 or 3 people. It's just a kind of a sharing thing. So we're going to go to the market. What do you need today? What can we help with? And it's just a really nice feeling of community.
And it's so much fun having the gallery because
Yeah.
you never know who's going to come in the door and where they came from. And so there's,
and it's not important to us if they buy something.
Right,
particular.
no.
I mean, we're not doing this to.
This isn't to make money.
No, it's just it's a way for us to have an outlet in this strange COVID year of seeing people, even though it's only 2 at a time inside, but outside we stand and talk with all our masks on and masks on inside. It's just a really positive.
Yes.
Um,
We've
have-
really grown too. Sea Ranch has grown by leaps and bounds, hasn't it, Paul?
It's amazing. And I love the personal relationships that you have developed over the years and the love of the good modern design that you all put together. And I think you brought so much to the community. And now with the new gallery, which is a lot of wonderful local artists as well, are you going to expand in that gallery some more products that are unique as you did at the other store?
Somebody tell you something?
I'm just wondering, just a question.
A little birdie.
A little bit.
One of the first things that someone said to me when I told her that we were going to be opening the gallery, she said, "Oh, are you going to carry Marimekko socks?"
No.
No. But you do have some wonderful artists, and kind of do a rundown on who currently is at the gallery. I know you have a special guest for the next week, but can you kind of give us a rundown on who's there right now?
Yes, Keith Wilson, who is the artist who we've known for a number of years, who is a wonderful and dedicated, devoted to the craft painter.
He's responsible for us doing this.
Yeah, he found the
Oh.
space. So you ought to go see them. But Keith and Erin Lee Gaffel, who is also an artist who we've worked with for many, many years, just does wonderful.
From Big Sur.
And she
Big
paints
Sur, yeah.
linear, she paints large, small. You'll find, because our gallery is so small, that even though an artist may be able to do large work, for the most part, we have to stick to things being small. There are just a number of
There's
people.
Sandy Ostro, who's local.
Mhm.
Sandy Ostro, who does superb paintings.
We have Al Forster, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but was an incredibly talented architectural illustrator who also did art work.
Who lived here for decades.
Right. We also have, who do we have? We also have Tina Beebe, who is a colorist who lives down in Santa Monica now, but used to have a house here at the Sea Ranch. And the connections to the Charles Moore, Lyndon, Turnbull, Whitaker group are intense. And we have some hand-blown glass by some artists from Seattle who are unfortunately for 2 years now going to be in Japan, so they won't be producing.
But they're artists we developed a relationship with back east years ago.
And we are going to be bringing in some ceramics, which are actually from Denmark. So this is our...
So how did you know about this, Paul?
I know absolutely nothing about it, but in my mind of knowing how you two operate, I know there's always a plan in the back somewhere.
Yeah, well...
But we're going to stay small and focused and enjoy the people and the place. And it's a wonderful.
one of the fun things is that because we're selling art, they're one of a kind. No,
Yes.
it's not, oh, let's keep track of, let's order a dozen of this or 2 dozen of that. It is what it is. And then when it's sold, it's gone.
Yes.
And sometimes it's not, people have a hard time grasping that sometimes. They'll come in and say, well, what happened to, I wanted a painting that was on that wall. And we'll say, sorry, but it's sold. And, and no, we can't get another one.
Paul, I see our time is almost up, but
Yeah.
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about what you're going to do with this wonderful program.
Well, I was talking with Peggy and Leanne and, being up at the Sea Ranch since 1968 as a little boy, and now finally retired there for 3 years. And I've enjoyed a lot of fun free time, but I like a good project and I love learning about people. And I've always kind of felt the bridge is almost a big gap that needs to be crossed. And that's kind of why I came up with this idea of crossing bridges. And I hope to bring people together with similar ideas who we can have conversations with on both sides of the river at the same time. And then also special people like yourself and other people that have shops in town, because we have such a unique community. And I think we need to bridge that river so we all feel like we're all together, even though we live in 2 different counties. But even though we do live in 2 different counties, we do tend to bring things together with RCMS and the things that are happening there. And it's a fascinating community. And I'm so privileged and happy to be involved. And given this opportunity is I hope I could bring a lot of new information to people that they didn't know anything about.
Well, you have
Very
great
well
colleagues in Peggy and Leanne. So they're
Thank
terrific.
you, Maynard, and thank you, Lou, and thank you, Paul. Before we go, though, give us just a little snapshot of yourself, Paul, when your previous years as a skier and also teaching children skiing.
Yeah. So my college career was a psychology degree and childhood education background. And I taught school for a few years, and, I enjoyed skiing. So I helped develop with others a children's ski program that became national. I recognized at over 150 ski resorts at one time. And I traveled throughout the country training instructors how to teach kids. Back in the day, they would put a 5-year-old with a 50-year-old, and it didn't really work out very well. So I tried to fix that, and we did, and it became a national program. And so skiing has always been my passion, and that's what I try to do every day during the winter. And that's why I'm at my cabin in the Sierra right now, trying to get the last bit of snow in before it melts. But yeah, that was always been my passion. And moving to Sea Ranch, because I grew up there as a kid, I just love what we have there, and I want to bring that community together more.
Thank you so much, Paul. We're glad to have you on KGUA as a new host on Crossing Bridges, and with our first guests, Lou and Maynard Lyndon. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you both. And thank you, Paul. Paul, really, again, I thank you so much for creating this show, and we look forward to your next guest.
Oh, I look forward to it as well. Thank you, Leanne.
You're welcome.
You
I'm
both.
Leanne Lindsay, and that's going to do it for Peggy's Place today. And this is Wednesday, February the 24th. And you can find us on 88.3 FM and online at kgua.org and on apps Radio Garden and TuneIn. And we have been live on YouTube today. And we're going to say goodbye to all of our YouTube listeners there too. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on